All right, let me talk something then about Horn Creek. And I'm not going to dwell heavy on nuts and bolts of Horn Creek of the past. I'll try not to. I'll just try to give a kind of a skim on that a little bit, so that you that have been coming for years do not have to feel that you're having to listen to something over and over and over again. But I'll try to be quick about the history part of it. First of all, I'm not from here. I'm from Illinois. And so we didn't discover this just because we lived around this area. And but my early life, a lot was built around conference ministry or camping ministry. A place in Indiana called Winona Lake, Indiana. At that time was a big conference ministry. That was back 30s and 40s, and they handled around 5,000 people in those days. And it meant a lot to me, finally, because although I was a preacher's kid, and although I was loyal to what my dad said, and it was right, you know, and all that, I never did apply a lot of Christianity to myself personally until probably about my last year in high school while I was there at Winona Lake. I really started applying Christianity that was something besides being a religion and a church building. And that was something that could be really very personal to my life. And I just then always wanted to be involved in camping. So when I went to college, seminary, all of that, I wanted to prepare to be a camp man. And when I went to college, I went out to the far, far Wild West, a place called Sterling, Kansas. And I thought that was really out in the West. And it was my second year there. A couple of gals invited my brother and I to come on out in western Kansas and hold some special meetings. And we did. And a place about 20 miles north of a community called Leota. That's way out, kind of way out in the sticks, you would say. But each summer we'd go back, and then when we graduated from college, we moved out there. We moved in the basement of a little Methodist church in one community, and then when I brought a bride out there, we'd go in the parsonage, which had a path and a pump. And then we wanted to do something for the young people of western Kansas and eastern Colorado. And so we came out to this area looking for a camp. And we started way up around Estes Park and found land way too high up there. They wanted $100 an acre. And so we came on down finally and landed up here. We went to Young Life Leadership Training Deal, which at that time was, they had a ranch there by the Broadmoor and Colorado Springs, and then came on down here, and we bought this land basically because it was cheap. Right? That was back in '51. And I think we bought it because it was cheap, and that was just it. Of course, the road just stopped 2 miles away from here, as close as the road came. And we bought this for $10 an acre. And so there had been some old potato cellars that were on the property, and we rebuilt one of them, and that was the beginning building. The old potato cellar up at the ranch. And so that's basically really, that's a historical building as far as we're concerned. It doesn't mean anything to anybody else, but to us it's historical because that was the first of Horn Creek. And then I had taken a little church, and I think they realized, and I knew that I wasn't a pastor, and all. They could do better. I get upset with committees. And so I quit the church and came up here with a wife, and without anything as far as sponsorship of any sort. And I suppose that's the first time I've put myself way out. People would say out on a limb. Others might say that was faith. But it was, to me at that time, it was a vision that we felt we wanted to fulfill. And in order to get in here, we had to buy an old 1928 Chevy coupe, high enough off the ground so we can get up here around the rocks, and so on and so forth. Then, so we came up, that was about in 52, 53. Then, in 55, we had our first camp of a dozen kids. We didn't have electricity yet, so my wife literally had the homestead because we didn't have electricity, of course, or telephone, or anything like that. We did get the county grade the road up a little bit up for us because that was a county right-of-way. They had never developed it enough to where we could get up here, but they was nothing like the roads you have now. Still very, very rough. And then in 55 we had 12, 56 we had 24, and so on. In 58 I gave up a little church I had to help start down on the river road down here at a place called Howard, and came back up here to be here on the weekends. We was living up here, but I had, of course, went down there on the weekends. And by 62, we felt that I needed to give up teaching school because I started teaching school in order to make a living, and it worked out very fine that the Lord worked that out because He gave us our 3 months in the summer to work on our project. But we felt God wanted us in full-time camping. But that time I was a little rebellious about just doing it because I had 6 children by then. And just giving up teaching, cutting off my income, and bringing up 6 children was a little tougher for me. The Lord had to work that out, and He did it in a way that was kind of hard on me, rough on me. But after I was through with, I knew God was wanting me up here. So we brought, after school was out, I wasn't teaching in town anymore. I was teaching back out in the plains because they paid a little more money. And after school was out, we moved up here permanently in 62, and then started to build the lodge. Well, we had to get some money, so we went to the bank. We did have enough equity by that time. The bank loaned us a little money, and I paid myself $200 a month out of that loan to go ahead and build. And but part of the next 2 or 3 years were a real trying time because here I was with 6 children, and nobody was interested in our winter camping. Partly rightly so. You know, they had froze their tails off when they came. And so the Lord, preserved them a little bit by keeping them away till we got a little tighter on things around here as far as heat is concerned and so on. 65 we had our first group, a young life group in, and by 68 we had enough groups at least coming in the winter that it was supporting us for our $200 a month. So we thought we were so successful it was time for us to expand. So the outcome then was building the lodge, because by that time we knew there was a ministry with family camps. And here we were hitting our 40s, and we felt it was time that we got maybe involved in the older people instead of just the young people. And so we dreamed of the lodge, went to an architect about what our dream was and so on, and he told us about our dream was going to cost us about $200,000, and of course I was just totally out of my realm, and I had a board by the time, and they said it was out of my realm. And so then the Lord brought along a man from Chicago who dealt with raising funds for Christian organizations, and I hadn't asked for him. He was just a mutual friend, and he just dropped by to see what we had, and I told him what we had, and it worked out that he was interested in helping us out. But basically what it was a bond program. A bond program is nothing but borrowing money from your friends for so much interest over a certain length of time. And so that was my third time that really put me way out, you might say, on that limb again. Because I didn't know anything about raising money. I knew nothing about going to people, certainly, and saying, hey, I want your money, not gifts. I just want to borrow it. You loan it to me. And so the builder at that time who built for us said, hey, you know, Paul, if I ever knew your financial situation, I'd have never started that building. And fortunately, he didn't know. And it wasn't because I was keeping it away from him. But the Lord had to undertake that I could get those funds together, and I'd run out during the week. out in western Kansas and knock on anybody that I felt that I could have any contact with at all that would just loan me $500, $1,000 on the building. And I'd come in Friday night and pay up the bills. Because the builder had told me, hey, you know, Friday night you're to settle up. So we built the lodge, and we're just thankful how God has used that in ministry and family camping. And of course the big thing I think Horn Creek is in now is family camping. We do some youth camping at the ranch area. It's basically a youth camp, although we're upgrading the ranch right now in the last couple of years because we're getting more adult groups that want to use us than we have space for them, so we're trying to get them into the ranch area. So we're trying to upgrade the ranch. But as far as family camping is concerned, I suppose Horn Creek has more family camps than about any other Christian camp in the United States. We're running 16 full weeks of family camp now, and then some long weekends and so on. But that's our big thing. And I think, because I feel that it's a more rewarding type of ministry, a more complete type of ministry, a more permanent, let me say, type of ministry in the lives of people when we can deal with the family, instead of just really just with young people and children. And because it's disappointing to send young people home all enthused about Jesus Christ, and so often even the church sometimes really squelches that. You send the family home, and that's a little bit different thing. Then a couple years after that, we had a group come along and say, we want 5 weeks rental from you for a children's type of thing. And do you have it? I didn't have it. I said, someday I like your program. There's a thing called Pioneer Girls. It's a Girl Scout program with a strong spiritual emphasis, and they have the same sequel with the boys called Boys Brigade. And I said, someday. Well, those dear ladies lost all sense of time, and 2 months later said, let's look at your plans. And I meant about 10 years away, and so I had to start saying, hey, maybe God does want me to do something. And my wife, realizing their husband she was married to, liked challenges, began to realize what might be happening. So she started praying against it. And so then, as some of you are aware, we had one great miracle in our life, and we've had many miracles, but one great miracle, as far as we're concerned, personally, that happened. I'm sure God did it. Maybe, I don't know how it's God's funny bone or whatever at answering my wife's prayer, but Abraham and Sarah started producing, and they never had any of their own before. All the ones we had up to that time we had selected, and you know, but we never had any blood ones. And here, lo and behold, we were in our 40s, married 20-some years, and Abraham and Sarah started producing. And I think God just said to my wife, hey, I am going to give you a little miracle to your lives, but you're going to go ahead and have to take on some more load. Because, I mean, we first had decided to go ahead with Mountain Metal. And we built that in 73, 74. Cost then got over $100,000 more than I figured it would get. I had to cut off building anymore. You old-timers know that it was adequate enough at least for us to go ahead and run cans. The basic thing that got cut was the rec building. In the rec building, I had ordered the beams already, the laminated beams, and I phoned that afternoon. I made the decision that we had, our financially was way over what we could do. I says, cut the beams. They says, we did cut the beams. They were cut this morning, you know. You're going to have them. And so we had to go ahead and take those beams and had to lay them just out on the ground for 6 years. And so we did have this, and then it was a process of probably the next 6 years of learning how to adapt to the deal that we were over $500,000 in debt to a lot of people who had loaned us, you know, $500, $700, you know, this type of thing, several $1,000s, and we had obligation to them, and we had a responsibility to see that the interest payments were paid and that we kept up what principal payments we had to make. And that has been a process in 6 years of learning some things that I didn't learn from school about business. And then part of the bigger thing was learning how to share our ministry with other people to come in, because Gene and I could not run 3 camps by ourselves. And we were going to have to get some outside people to come in and share a vision and a dream that somebody else had. So you men can identify that, maybe being involved in some kind of job. It was somebody else's dream and so on and so forth. And then they want you to get real committed to it. Well, that was the situation really here, of getting some people to be committed to a situation which was not just a 40-hour, or it was a substandard, you might say, wage-wise, all this type of thing. But they get committed that there was a ministry here in campus, and doing things that a lot of you consider very ordinary, like, you know, washing dishes and scrubbing floors and cleaning potties and so on, and think it's a ministry. And trying to get some people involved that would do things like that and think it as a ministry. And so the last 6 years, it's been a deal of them having to learn how to get along with me, which has not been always easy, and also for me learning how to get along with other people who do things different than I would do it, you know, and who a lot of times they would even destroy some things that I knew that we worked hard to put in, and they would destroy some of it or something like that. And it was this type of working a lot of these things out with me, and I'm still working a lot of these things out with myself. But anyway, that's what's been about the last 6 years. Now, the ministry has grown. And the family camps have really, as you know, have really taken a hold. And last year we had over 12,000 campers. We had over 40,000 camper days involved with the people that were here. We are having far more demand than what we can handle as far as family, people wanting to come into family camps. But I just look back at it, and I'm just so thankful that where we're at today. I look at one thing, I look at Gene's my life, and I know that we are not, in one sense, any extraordinary people mentally or anything like that, although we both do like to work. But the world doesn't put a lot of value on that work, as they do a lot of times in mentality and so on and so forth. And we're not anything great shakes along that line maybe, but I'm thankful that at least God got us involved in a ministry that now is involving 12,000 people a year, and I never dreamed God would ever get me to a place that I at least would have that much involvement with some lives. And I'm thankful for it. So very thankful that God could take somebody who probably could better work with his hands than anything else and help get involved in lives of people. Like fall, I had a man come to talk to me who bought a camp up in the northern part of the state. It had been built by Phillips 66 for their administrators, and it was a quite nice camp on a section of land with a 110-acre lake on it, and some very nice buildings with a lot of equipment we don't have. They have backup electrical systems, backup heating systems, backup this and backup that and everything. They had all this. And he put down $1 million on that place. So, you know, he was a man of some means. But he put $1 million down on that, but he owed another $1.5 million. So he came to me last fall and he says, "What do I do? I've got a camp. I owe a lot more money on it. How do I run something like this? What do I do?" Well, you know, listening to his story and listening to that from a businessman's viewpoint right now, all I can say humanly, he's had it. Because he can handle about 120 people. And what he has to charge for 120 people, you know, the Christian world can't take it. And the interest on $1.5 million, you know, he's had it.
Going though, when between 51 and 68.
Just a vision, I guess, a dream. Just a dream. You know?
Vision has its appointed time, the scripture says, but surely there are times when you said, Paul Zeller, you you were smoking something strange or drinking something weird. That didn't come from God.
No, I don't think there was any really real weak times. The only times I can say that have been a little more difficult. Now, you're getting rather personal with me now. It's been the last year. And the only thing I can say that is because I don't know whether, and I don't believe this completely. There's a book on the market, and it's written by a man who's been a speaker with us, and so on. You might say I'm the mid-age crisis. I don't know. But I do know, I do know that I've hit a situation that I've never experienced before, where I am going down at times. And
the dream itself sustained you.
Yes, I think so. And I think, there was always the fact, I think that whatever I tried to do the best I could, and people, of course, as long as they compliment you and say, hey, you're doing great, I guess we all thrive on some of that. And so my philosophy on building is I think there's too many junk camps where it's made out of the leftovers that nobody else wanted and they gave it to the camp. Leftover materials out of a building. So and so on. I'm not.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. And volunteer help. I will not have volunteer help. Volunteer help, you're going to go back and do it over again. Most of the time. So I've had some philosophies along that line of trying to keep my quality up. And if you keep your quality up, then people respond. I suppose that's the selfish looking at the selfish, or we like the ego part of it, I guess. Not selfish, the ego part of it. Does that answer some of it?
Well, I guess I was asking for myself and about my dreams for some handles when people think that I'm abusing my family and think I'm really strange and probably doing something that I shouldn't do, and I'm trying to do more than I can do. When I hire people, couples. Now, I have this question put to me a lot of times by a family. Well, what happens to your family since you put in so long hours here? What will happen to my family if I'm involved and haven't put so many hours in a place like this? And I have that put to me all the time, and I must say it irritates, that happens. And because with my family right now, all my family are 100% the time behind Mom and Dad. Now, it may not have always been that way, but they are now. They're 100% behind Mom and Dad. And they feel, my son gave me, one of my sons gave me a Father's Day card. And he said, I'm thankful my father's given so much of his life to others. And that's meaningful, that they see that now. And I think some maturity in their lives as they got a little older, into their 20s, that they can look back and see some things with maturity that they didn't see before.
But in talking to your mother last year and this year, she had shared with me just the joy overflow as she has seen your dream come to pass in her part and her joy and wife's joy and sharing with you in this dream. Now, I feel like I wanted to ask, hey, has this been hard and unfolded? Your personal family besides your wife and this, hey, they were all behind you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Dwight was in the service. There was a part of his salary he never saw as a chaplain because it always came to Horn Creek. And when he got married, his wife realized this part of his salary, and it was a chunk, came to Horn Creek, keep us going through those early days. And my mother and my father, of course, were very, very strong behind us. And I'm sure that when my mother died, there's one prayer warrior that's going to be gone that we're going to miss an awful lot. But she's prayed an awful lot for us.
That was the thing that was crossing my mind.
I think you know that you do have the prayer of all these people here. And I think I speak collectively for
the campers. And we just want to thank you for keeping it where we can come. Because there's not many places where we could spend a vacation of having the fellowship. You know, we have to build up every once in a while to go back out there and fight that world. And it is bad out there. And coming to Horn Creek the past 3 years, when I'm driving down that road, you know what I'm thinking? I sure will be glad when I'm driving the other direction. I live for coming back to Horn Creek. And it's really been a ministry to my family and to all the families. And I think for the people that are here for the first time, you want to come back. And when you're driving down that road, that's the feeling that you're going to have. And that's what Horn Creek's all about. And we love you guys. We love you very much.